plans in place in advance of that. But Simon Fell.
Thank you, Chair. The Home Secretary recently wrote to the committee and said you were going to begin proactive data sharing again in pursuit of the hostile and compliant environment policy. What improvements have you put in place around the data that you share and the processes for sharing to ensure we don't have any issues when this goes ahead?
So this is about sharing Home Office data with other parts of the British Government, including the Department for Work and Pensions, I think, and others, and local authorities and some external agencies. So we are taking those obligations very seriously. We are making sure that we are absolutely learning the lessons of Wendy Williams's review and are ensuring that we have mechanisms in place to share the data that those other organisations need, but without creating any safeguarding or other issues.
And these support some of the provisions within Immigration Acts 2014 and 2016, I believe. So this is sharing to banks, building societies, DVLA, other agencies like that. And are your plans to reopen all of those channels, or are you narrowing down to just a certain few?
I don't have that information available, Ms. Fell, but I will happily write to the committee just to be absolutely clear about which channels are being reopened and when.
I'd appreciate that, thank you. And again, you may not have the answer to this one to hand, but just on the volume of data being shared, I'd be curious to know where you are on those metrics compared to the height of data sharing in Immigration Act 2014 levels. I suspect you don't have that answer.
I don't, but I, again, happily answer that question along with the other.
Building up a good collection of letters from you. Thank you very much. Okay, in which case I'll move on. So when Wendy Williams came before the committee, she talked about her recommendations for looking at the hostile and compliant environment. And she was concerned. She expressed a concern that the Home Office hadn't moved with either the detail or speed that she would have hoped following her review. I'm just curious as to your view as to why she thinks that, and to hear your opinion on exactly what the Home Office has been doing and why those delays occurred.
So the answer to that is that Wendy Williams is coming back at the end of the month. She will spend a few months actually with us, talking no doubt to you and others with an interest as well. And then by the second anniversary of her report, so March of next year, she will come up with conclusions, not just on that issue, but on all of the 30 recommendations. And I hope also on that sort of big underlying issue that's not quite captured in any one recommendation, but which goes to the heart of the need to transform the Home Office, to come up with this new culture of openness and so on. So that's what she will be embarking on. She hasn't started that yet. So I don't want to put words into her mouth. It's her judgment as an independent person coming in, supported by the Home Office, but very much able to make her own conclusions from the evidence available, both from us and from anyone else with an interest. But certainly what I will be saying is that we are proud of the progress that we have made. Already we feel as though we have totally completed 11 recommendations and are on track to complete a further 4 by the end of this year. So half of the 30 will be completely finished by the end of this calendar year. The other half all have some form of complexity or long-term nature about them, including the one that you allude to, which requires ongoing work. We have made a start on all of them, so on even on the other 15, we are tracking very regularly, including the Second Permanent Secretary and myself personally, so that we can see which ones are on or off track, which ones need more resource, and so on. So there should be no excuses for any which are off track, because they have all had senior attention and resource behind them. But some of them are just much harder to implement than others, and some of them require a very long period of time.
Thank you. And just going back to the data sharing piece, and this may be another one for a letter, but some of the some of the checks and balances which appear to have been put in around this are the ability for individuals, for instance, if they believe their data is erroneously on a list, to report this to you. So on that in particular, I'm interested in the interplay between how quickly the Home Office would expect to react to a report like that, because we're potentially talking about cessation of someone's bank accounts, ability to not rent a property, access NHS services, those sorts of things, so very serious. But also what sort of metrics you're putting in as a department to say that you've got the necessary improvements in place and processes in place, and then how you're going to check that against Wendy Williams' review.
Yes, so you're right. I will need to write all the detail, but the short version is that absolutely we will only open up channels for data sharing if we are sure that we have those systems in place. And on the metrics point, again, I mean we will clearly need metrics in order to monitor and evaluate how we are doing, and I'm happy to set out in detail how we're planning to do that.
Thank you. Last question from me, Chair. So going back to Stuart McDonald's point around putting a face behind the case, how are you tracking sort of the training that's gone into that to outcomes and measuring the effectiveness of that training?
First of all, we are tracking the training, so making sure that every single person who is a caseworker or in any other way would benefit from that training does that, and we are on track with that. And then we are through the caseworking function that we have been building up. We will be monitoring that and ensuring that there is quality. It goes back to what the Second Permanent Secretary was saying earlier. Rather than having numeric targets which would drive particular types of behaviour which we would not want to pursue, we clearly will track efficiency within the caseworking functions, but we will mainly be interested in quality and ensuring that we have mechanisms in place for the managers of decision makers to be overseeing that and ensuring that we are incentivising the best and encouraging those who have further to go to learn from the best.
And recognising that it's not about metrics, so it's not about number of cases processed. I realise it's early days yet, but what impacts are you seeing through the channel as a result of this?
I mean, we're getting some really energising and inspiring feedback from individuals who have noticed a difference. But I'm sure that's been true all along. I mean, clearly there have been some people who have had a very good experience all along. But we'll try to capture that for the committee if we can. And obviously we are keen to accelerate that.
Thank you. And sorry, I did say last question, but this one genuinely is. Just to Ruth Edwards' point around the backlog, clearly this will delay that process. You're applying more thought and care to individual cases. Do you have a feel for exactly how much this slows down the processing of an individual case?
I'm not sure I agree with the premise in that question. I'm not sure I agree that it's a more it's going to be a more time-consuming process to carry out casework, deal with individuals' circumstances in a way which is humane and empathetic, than to do it in a way that's not humane and empathetic. So I don't think we have or would design into our efficiencies programme any sense that there's some kind of time penalty associated with doing things better.
I call it a time bonus, but I accept your point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have a few follow-up questions.